Hello and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, what I like to do is to create videos that would have been helpful to me when I first got out buying gold, silver, silverware, jewelry, and such at garage sales and thrift shops. Today's video is one that's been requested a number of times, and it is about determining the value of your gold. There are a number of aspects to this that we will get through in the video, and it's very important to understand that just because we're arriving at a particular value with this gold doesn't mean that's what you'll be able to get for it. And I really want you to understand that the gold buyers are also making a living. So I want you to not be ripped off, to have a concept of what your gold is worth and have a method for determining that. But also understand that you can't go into a gold shop and ask for full spot value for your gold. They would starve to death if they did that. So we'll get into both of those topics as we go through. But what I'm going to start with is I'm just going to start with determining how much is your gold worth if you melt it down. Now, keep in mind, this is all jewelry that we're looking at. So what we are talking about is kind of like a floor value for what this thing is. And I'm going to start with a very simple piece to determine what the value is. And we're going to use numbers that are basically the numbers that we have today, I believe. I'm going to start with this piece here. If you watched my gold video, you'll see that we determined this was 14 karat gold. Now, 14 karat gold is not pure gold. Pure gold is 24 karat gold. 14 karat is only 58.5% gold. So what we're going to do is we're going to just open this up here, open up this lid. I will link this particular scale in the comments, and I'll link a couple others that are pretty decent scales for home scales. Keep in mind that we're not being exact or precise in what we're doing here, because when you're actually selling it, the precision will, things will be rounded, things will be rounded up or down. So if you're worried about me being exactly precise with this, understand that that's not what we're doing today. This isn't about exactly how much gold is in this. This is about, if we're selling it, what should we expect to get? So we'll just flip this puppy on. And then I will move this larger one that I have out of the way, and we will see if we can actually show. Let me change this light. There we go. So now you can see the total there. I like to weigh things in grams. It's very easy. And the reason that I like to do that is because there's a difference between ounces and troy ounces. So if we're talking about how much gold is worth, we're typically talking about how much is 1 troy ounce of gold worth. That's the spot price. But the nice thing is that if you're going by the gram price, then you don't have to worry about that. So there are a variety of websites. I'll link a couple in the the description of this video that you can go to determine what the current spot price per gram of gold actually is. I'm going to set this on my little scale here. I'm going to make sure that it is all the way on the scale and it's good. It's settled down into our total. Now our total there is 5.767. So what we'll do here is we'll pull out our calculator and we will turn it on, and we're going to see, let's clear that. We're going to see, what do we have? I don't know what that is. Okay, so we have 5.767 grams of 14 karat gold. Now we can multiply that by the current spot price. So if this were 24 karat gold, spot price last I checked, we're just going to say 85 a gram. It's about 85 US dollars a gram at the moment. And we'll just multiply that by 85. And then we'll multiply that by 0.585 because that's what 14 karat gold is. it's 58.5% gold. And that will give us a value of $286. Now, if we were to melt down this piece today, and we're able to recover all of the gold that is contained within this 14 karat piece from 1937, that would be a shame. I think this is a very neat little thing, and it is worth significantly more than that, I believe, as an object, as a piece of jewelry. But what we're talking about right now is if you go into a gold buyer, what are you going to get for this? And 286 is more or less what they will get for it when they melt it down. So if this is melted down, the gold buyers will typically be able to get something like 98% of spot, but of the actual gold in this. Now, this says it's 14 karat, but the process of actually turning it back into pure gold can result in a little bit of loss, and it might not be the full 58.5%. It might be 58%, might be 57.5%. We don't really know, especially with older pieces. So the gold buyers have to put in some kind of wiggle room there. And typically what I have found locally is that the decent gold buyers who aren't going to rip you off would give you 70% of spot for this object. So then we multiply that by 0.7, and we're at about 200. So if I were to go down to my local pawn shop today and say, hey, I need to sell this, that would be the number that I would expect them to give me, something around that number. Now, if they said $100 or they said $75 or something like that, I would know that either something went wrong with the math on their end, which definitely can happen, or I would believe that they're trying to get one over on me. Now, one of the things that's important to also understand is that if they give you some sort of number, that isn't that $200 number for this piece, then you can ask them, how did you arrive at $100? How did you arrive at $75? And just ask for them to do the math for you, because this is all the math is. They may have a website that's giving them scrapping value. They may be using a different website than you're using to determine the current spot value. Keep in mind that gold sellers will go with the most optimistic spot value. What is the most optimistic value that gold is selling at right now? And people who are buying gold to refine it will give you the most pessimistic number. So if someone is a gold buyer, they're probably going to go with the lower number for spot prices, so that they can actually obviously make more of a profit and feed their kids. So that is a very simple example, and that's effectively it. If you are having like just nice solid pieces, like say you have a ring that's just a solid piece like that, that's how it goes. That's roughly what you're going to get. Now, you might be able to negotiate a little bit higher because this is a solid piece. And gold buyers are, if they're saying that we're going to take something in at 70%, they may be also factoring in stones. They may be factoring in other sorts of loss involved in the melting down of these objects. So what I want to do for the rest of this video is that I'm actually going to go through all of these pieces as examples, and we're going to talk about establishing what the floor value, the melt value of this is, so that you can understand how to do different pieces. Because odds are you probably don't have just like chunks of, unless it's like a wedding ring, you probably don't have just straight up chunks of 14 karat gold. So we're just going to start going to plow through this. We'll go through some of the easier things first, and then we'll go into some of the more difficult things. So one of the easier pieces is this one right here. Now this is I think it's a wedding band, and if you look you'll see that this one is 18 karat. There we go. Yep, so that's an 18 karat white gold band. And that piece, when we weigh it up, let's turn this on here so you can see that total. There we go. Let's weigh this piece up. All right. So we are at 4.135. So let's go back to our calculator, make sure it's nice and clear here. And we'll go 4.135 times, we're going with that 85 per gram number for the spot price at the moment, times 75%, 0.75, because 18 karat gold is 75% gold. And then we come up with me having done the calculator wrong. All right, 4.135 times 85 times 0.75 equals $263. Kind of an interesting number, huh? Weighs less, but pretty similar to that one. And that's because 14 karat gold is 58.5%, but 18 karat gold is 75%. And that is one of the things we definitely want to hammer into our heads regarding these pieces, is that these different pieces will have different values based on the gold concentration within them. So we're going to clear this one, and we're going to do one more piece, which is just one solid chunk, and that's going to be this one right here. And you might be wondering, what? That's a thimble. What do you mean? That's gold. And I mean, this is a gold thimble. I found this in a pile of thimbles and confirmed, yeah, that's that 10 karat mark is true. It is not lying. That is a 10 karat gold thimble. So that is solid 10 karat. And we will use that here for another calculation. All right, gotta wait for this to zero out. And then there we go. What do we got? We have 3.441. All right, let's clear this. 3.441 times 85 times 0.416, which is 10 karat gold. And I would highly suggest, if you are doing this at home, to look up what the percentages are and just have those clear. And what do we have? We're at $121. So the floor value for our thimble here is $121. Now, again, these objects are going to be worth more as antiques and as what they are in many cases. The thimbles, not so much, partially because I don't know how many people buy gold thimbles anymore. Shockingly, these are all over the online auction sites for surprisingly close, or even in some cases less than spot price. And I couldn't exactly tell you why that is, other than the fact that I think this was more of a Victorian thing that people would have solid gold thimbles. And you also might be asking, solid gold thimble, isn't that going to be too soft and to actually be a thimble? And the answer is no. 10 karat is actually quite hard and quite durable. That's one of the reasons 10 karat was used, not just to reduce the amount of gold in it, but also because it is a more durable piece. Okay, now that we've done some of the easy things, I wonder if this light will help. Let's try this light too. That's a good light. I like that light. Okay, we're gonna have a more intimate lighting for the rest of this video. So now that we've actually done some of the easier pieces here, let's talk about some of the harder pieces. I'm gonna start off with a piece that you just would have to negotiate. The only way to know how much gold is in this piece is if you were to melt it down. Now, let me see if you can see what's going on here. There we go. See, it's 14K and 925. So 14 karat gold along here, and then the rest of it is constructed out of sterling silver. So how much 14 karat gold is in there? Well, you'd have to peel off the gold and then weigh that separately from the sterling to actually know that. So aside from disassembling this, I have no way of knowing what the gold value of this piece is. And it's important to understand that that will happen with some of your pieces. And the nice thing about jewelry is, of course, it has value outside of just the precious metals. But for this piece, you would pretty much just add a little bit of a premium on top of the silver, the silver value, sort of guess what's in there. And if you're selling it, stick to your guns for what you want for it. Obviously, a buyer is not going to be particularly generous when you were trying to sell such a thing. It's much better to sell this actually as the ring. Now, you might be looking at all of the big stones. So here we have a ring, which is let me double check here. I think we've got a mark in there. Is that side? Yeah, it's that side. I'm not sure if it shows up very good on this camera because I think somebody wore this ring a lot. But if we were to look close, you'd see that that was a 14 karat. In any case, let's continue with the video. So this is 14 karat, but hey, look at that. There's a lot of stones there. Why don't we weigh this up? We'll just have a check here. Let's see, what does this puppy weigh? Weighs in at 3.155, roughly. I should also note, you see how it's going back and forth? That's because this isn't a entirely flat, stable surface, which if you want to get accuracy, you want to make sure this is on a flat, stable surface. But we're not, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, we're not going for accuracy. But definitely if it's too wobbly, it's not going to work at all for you. In any case, we have a question here. That's a neat ring. It's got a lot of stones in it, and they're not insignificant stones, right? Those are of, there's going to be some weight in there. How much weight is in these stones compared to the gold weight? And the answer is, we don't know unless we take them out. Now, a good jeweler can probably give you a decent estimate after they determine what type of stones they are and measure the stones so they have an idea of the carats. Then they can actually figure that out. But are they going to do that for a ring they're going to scrap? The answer is no. So in the case of my reputable gold buyer, they pay 70% and they just include the stone weight. And part of why they pay 70% is because it all comes out in the wash for them. They can still make a profit even though they are, in most cases, overpaying for the gold, or at least overpaying. Like if they bought this piece at 70% versus this piece at 70%, they're getting a better deal on the gold in this piece than in this piece. But the stones might be worth something too. And a lot of gold buyers will, they'll make money off of the stones, so they figure they're probably worth about as much as the gold, maybe a little bit of loss. But it's just easier to buy it at 70%, which is the same thing if we are looking at diamond ring, diamond tennis bracelet. So we're going to take both of these pieces because they're both 10 karat, and I'm just going to go ahead and weigh them up for you to give you an idea. These are, these are pretty nice pieces. Let's have a look here. Maybe I'll turn on this light again so you can have a better look. You know, I actually had to go borrow these from my mom. They're going to be for another video. Funny thing is I found these both separate. And I've got $12 invested in both of these. But they are only 10 karat. However, there's a lot of stones in there. So again, just as an example, let's put all these 10 karat pieces on our scale. And let's have a look, see, as to what these weigh in at. Because as you can see, there's a lot of diamonds in here. I mean, they're little diamonds, but there's a lot of diamonds. Whoop. So we are at 7.433 grams. And we're going to do the calculation just one more time, just to make sure we got it stuck in our heads. So let's go ahead and turn this on. Clear it. We're going to say 7.433. We're going to times that by our current spot price per gram, 85, and this is 10 karat. So then we're going to multiply that by 0.416. We're going to come out to 262. But is it 262? How much weight is in diamonds in these pieces? The answer is probably quite a lot. But then the other answer is, how much are those diamonds worth? You know, it's a good question. They're little diamonds. They're not really the best diamonds, I don't think. But because they're set in 10K. I do know they're natural diamonds, so they're a little bit better in that regard. But yeah, this is where, if you're selling this piece, you need to consider not just the gold value, but you also should have in the back of your mind, how much is the gold value in this piece, so that you are properly equipped to negotiate. All right, we'll continue through for a couple more things. I'm going to use an example right here. This is a broken chain, or a little bit of broken chain. Maybe you have some of these. You bought them, they broke. Grandma had a bunch of them. You know that they're gold. In this case, I've already verified this one's 14 karat gold, but it's broken. All it's really good for is scrap anymore. So how much might something like this be worth? So I'm just going to flip this one on. Now the gold buyer will definitely test this, and then you figure out, boy, that is what, 0.6. So that is 0.6 of a gram. Let's clear this, and we're going to say 0.6 times 85 times, and again, this was 14 karat, so that's 0.585, 29 bucks. Now, I wanted to point this out for two different reasons. One, that's a itty bitty little thing for basically 30 bucks, right? That's not much. You'd think that's just a little piece of trash for 30 bucks, and it is. But if you have a bunch of these things, they really add up. So again, you're not going to get the full $30 for it from a gold buyer. And if you have a lot of little bits and bobs of chains, it might be very annoying for your gold buyer. If they're busy, they may not want to go through and test all your little bits and bobs of chains. But definitely don't toss them. Definitely hang on to them, because gold is so valuable that these things are worth hanging on to. All right, so I'm going to speed through the rest of these things. We're not going to actually talk about any of these in terms of weighing up. I think you've got the idea of how to weigh things, how to figure them out. But there are some things that are worth noting with all of the rest of these pieces. One of them is that you may have like an old pin like this. Now this old pin is actually 14 karat gold. However, the pin, you see this part right here, the part you shove through your shirt, isn't gold. So a buyer is probably going to want to discount that for you. So understand, when you're negotiating the value of your pieces, if you are selling to a gold buyer and not necessarily a jeweler who's going to want this as a piece of jewelry, they're going to say, well, this detracts from the value, and they will try to say it's quite a bit. You'll try to say it's not as much. But it is important to understand that just because your piece is 14 karat gold doesn't mean the entire piece is 14 karat gold. So that can happen. If you have a piece like this is a 14 karat gold pin on the back here. And then this piece on the front is 10 karat. So we have mixed value or mixed amounts. How much does this weigh versus how much does this weigh? It's a good question. So a gold buyer might weigh this up and say, you know what, I lied. I'm going to do one more example here real quick. So a gold buyer might weigh this up and say that this weighs 4.7. So we're going to say, clear this and we'll say 4.7 times 85. Now, the gold buyer is probably going to say, since we don't know what it weighs, we're going to go ahead and multiply that by 0.416. We're going to say it's all 10 karat, and we're going to buy the entire piece as 10 karat instead of trying to give you a little bit more for the 14 karat portion. Again, that's why with things like gold, as opposed to selling bullion, or excuse me, jewelry as opposed to selling bullion, you definitely need to consider the value of the jewelry and not just the value of the gold. Similarly, you walk in with grandma's gold, but completely unmarked Montana agate 9 karat ring. How much are you going to get for this? And the answer is you're going to get a lot more for it if you sell it as a piece of jewelry. And shame on you for selling grandma's beautiful old ring. Let's go find some other way to make you some money. A gold buyer will probably really try to short you on this piece because it is definitely worth more as an antique than it is in the gold content in this. And these older pieces, you can see how kind of, if I can show it in a different light here, you can see how kind of rosy that is. Say we compare it to this piece right here. Maybe not in that light, maybe in this light. There's a lot more copper in yeah, there you go. You can kind of see the different colors there a little bit. There's a lot more copper in this piece than there is in like 14 karat gold will be, 0.585%. This thing, I think this thing's only like 35% gold. So it's a lot less gold. With the antique pieces, I highly suggest, unless there's something that's completely destroyed and you really do trust your gold buyer, find another way to sell them. Find an antique shop and have a chat with them. But again, understand that if you can determine about how much gold is in it, you can use the same method to determine what your sort of floor for the piece is. And I highly suggest you do that. And the reason you do that is because you don't necessarily want to sell it to someone who's just going to melt it down. Because I think that would be a shame. All right, last piece I want to mention just before we wrap up is this piece, and this is a 14 karat gold piece, but you'll see that the catch isn't actually 14 karat gold. It's a different color, and I'm not entirely sure what it's made of, but I don't think that the catch is gold. Keep in mind that you may have unscrupulous buyers who will say, oh, this is fake because of the catch. It is not fake because of the catch. It is, in fact, a 14 karat gold bracelet. So if you are absolutely certain that you have a piece of gold and someone says, oh, this is fake, but I'll give you, $20 for it or $5 for it anyways, it's a nice fake. That's probably somebody that you're going to want to walk away from and go to another location and try to do the same thing and see what they say about the piece. Definitely get a second opinion on something like that. All right, so let's wrap up here. I hope you found this useful. And if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, leave a comment. If you want to know anything more about any of these pieces, certainly just let me know. I can do videos on all of this stuff. These are all things that I really have no intention of ever parting with. So even if you're watching this video years after it was published, odds are these pieces are still in my collection, and I can certainly do some follow-up videos on it. I hope you can use this information to go out and find some of your own treasure. Have a great day.